Welcome to the Darcy Wellness Clinic's Diet Detox Program. This is our second session in a 2-week diet detox program, which is about weight loss and also about how to reprogram ourselves into eating better. So we're here with my wife, Po Darcy, my partner in the Darcy Wellness Clinic and in life, and myself, Geoff Darcy. I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist at the clinic, and we're going to take people through the diet detox program the second week. So if we could just start off just by a slight recap of what happened in our first week. And in the first week, we went over a bunch of information that pretty much told everybody about trying to use fruits and vegetables organically where possible, with strong emphasis on organic vegetables. No coffee, no alcohol, and that's the first phase of our program. And then the brave few that survived that first week are with us in the audience tonight. And we're going to go to them and find out about their experiences and just recap that. Do you have anything to add, Po?
Well, just to recap what these brave people have been through is they launched themselves on a 2-week diet detox program. So they've been through the first week. And we divided the program into 3 phases, and the first phase is 6 days, and that was the most detoxifying, if you will, part of the program. So they were eating only fruits and vegetables, as much or as little as they wanted, and very healthy, healthful beverages. So we definitely coach them in terms of what they might expect, but what we really want to do is hear from them now. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you're up, Marianne. So let's ask, how did it go? You went a week with fruits and vegetables, diet detox?
The first couple of days were kind of hard because my body was trying to get used to just having that.
Did you have a couple of rough days with headaches?
I didn't have any physical side effects like that, but I did have those strong cravings coming back. Yeah. And then by day 3 and 4, those totally vanished. And then I really didn't crave it at all.
What were the strong cravings that were hitting you?
Salt.
Salt, yeah.
Salty foods and sugary foods like baked goods and things like that. And then really by day 3 or 4 that subsided, and then I just didn't even have the craving for it. So, and I started juicing a lot, which was a great way to, have lots of different fruits at one time. And then I started just grilling vegetables and eating vegetables in a different way. And it makes you be creative with vegetables. Tried new vegetables. Yes.
What was your favorite that you came across here?
My favorite was a butternut squash, which I loved. Also the romaine lettuce. I'm not a big salad eater, so that was big. And tomatoes and green peppers and yellow peppers and orange peppers. Those were my favorite.
No cravings for dairy, because I know that we spoke earlier.
I was really a heavy dairy, yes, no cravings. Yeah. They just have kind of vanished. So.
Did you try anything else instead?
I did not. I did buy almond milk, which I haven't drank yet, but I totally stayed away from dairy, and I felt a significant difference in my sinuses and the pollen and everything. So.
That's great. Yeah. So this has been a big, eating a lot more vegetables, it being a big shift for you, right?
Huge. Yeah. Really huge. And just eating well every day, balanced good meals every day. Yeah.
And it's a shock for your family too?
They can't believe it. Everyone's wondering what's happened to me.
I know that you spoke to me on the phone about how your taste buds had changed.
Yes. They really do, and the cravings do go away. After the first couple of days, they just kind of subside. The body just adjusts, and you really don't crave it anymore. So,
how was sleep? Were you sleeping any better, or?
Actually, I didn't sleep better. I would wake up at 4 in the morning on the dot every day with tons of energy. So that was a little difficult because I was up kind of early. But I got a lot done. So checked all my email, paid all my bills before 7 o'clock. So it's a good thing. Yeah. I'd recommend it highly. Yeah.
Okay.
Well done. That's
good
quite
job.
So your favorite meal out of everything that you tried? Any favorite recipes at all? Or?
I did create a lot of Mexican salads. I would cook corn and use tomatoes, and then I'd make fresh guacamole and put it on. and add some lime to it. And I just got really creative with food.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
And now I really enjoy cooking where
So
I
no
really
dressing,
didn't.
you just add the lime straight
Yes,
in.
and the salsa creates kind of a dressing because it's a liquidy.
Yeah.
And I would just make all these fun concoctions. It was great.
Oh, well done. You really are glowing.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And was there anything that surprised you?
I'm
like
just
you didn't
surprised at how
expect?
much energy I have.
Uh-huh.
I just, for how much less I'm eating, it seems like because I'm not having meat and heavy food, I feel so much lighter. I have tons of energy.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel light and good. So
It's really remarkable. You know, we've been doing it 15 years, Bo and I would say every time we do the 2-week diet detox, you know, it's amazing. Instead of getting home tired and you have a big meal and then you can't get up, suddenly you're up, you're wandering around, you're doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
more
the energy that's
productive.
freed up is very definitely.
And more clarity.
Yeah.
I notice I think more clearly, I can concentrate better, I'm not as tired. And like usually at 3 o'clock you have that slump where you're really sleepy and kind of tired.
Yeah.
And I just don't have that.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah. I do think that lightness, and you know, we're going to talk about food as, you know, the energetics of food in a little while, but you literally are taking more light in because you're eating fruits and vegetables that, you know, take sunlight in. So you're actually taking that into your body. It is creating a more of a lightness of being, as it were. And yes, it's the springtime when things are shooting upward and giving you that uplifting feeling.
Yeah.
So you're experiencing it. So
And when you think,
that's
you know,
great.
chlorophyll really is captured sunshine. You know, chlorophyll, the green in plants and all the leaves we've all consumed this week. You know, it's really a lot of captured sunshine. You know, it's a lot. And also in traditional Chinese medicine, they would say that the leaves are really on the ends of plants and trees, and that they produce a light flowing energy, and it's more solid kind of roots in the ground that have a more, you know, a grounding type of energy. Yeah. So big shift. Well done.
Big excellent.
shift.
Before we
Thank you.
pass on, generally, you know, we spoke last week about the idea of 70% of the body's metabolic energies goes towards detoxifying waste products. So the reason this is such a healing diet, you know, that's the detoxifying part of it, is that, you know, maybe about 40, we go to about 40% of energy being consumed with metabolic processes of detoxification. So that frees up about 30, 40% more energy into the system. Now, it'll go on to your bills and, you know, paying everything, cleaning the house. But if there's any system that's struggling in the body, that energy is there and available for healing. The body is better oxygenated because the wastes are moved out of the system better.
Well, it's
You know,
interesting you say
yeah.
that because from yoga, I've kind of gotten this pain in my right elbow, and it's totally gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, all the little, and Sue we were talking about this prior to this, that the little pains kind of start going away. Or someone said they had arthritis, and it's kind of gone away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've experienced that also.
We've got a slide a little bit later about all of the things that inflammation in the body leads into, and how a lot of toxification of the body leads into inflammation and chronic inflammation. And that when you do this and you clear out a lot of those metabolic waste, then a lot of, you know, anti-inflammatory compounds taken in by the food really help to heal inflammatory processes in the body.
Yeah.
So that's a large portion about why, you know, fasting and, you know, or just cutting back, you know, to real food, staying away from refined foods. It's such a huge healing capacity in the body and mind. You know, so you know, the idea that most religions of the world, you know, for Lent or Ramadan or whatever it may be, are ways of freeing up a lot more energy for the body, mind, and spirit to be able to use for whatever means.
Definitely.
we need.
And also, I have a lot of sinus issues because I drank so much milk and I ate so much dairy food. And since I haven't had dairy in the last week, I just feel this kind of clarity in my face. I don't feel stuffy. My ears don't kind of click when I swallow. I just feel like it's all kind of gone. It's great.
Amazing how
I'm glad we started with
quickly-
you.
Yeah.
Today.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. How was your week? How did you do? Hard to follow that week.
I had a great week. I had a really great week. I can't believe I'm sitting here. I was, expecting, not sure about succeeding or not.
Any rough days at all? Or?
Friday is a blur.
So that's about the second day in.
And Saturday was started out great, but then it was really rough actually. Like I tried to take a nap and I couldn't even, everything, I was kind of agitated all over because I was just, I don't know, I guess my body was going through a lot of different changes.
I think, in terms of the nervous system too, I think that, there's a lot of excitotoxins in foods that have been very well planned into refined foods. There's a lot of people that correlate the big business moving from tobacco coming into fast food and bringing a lot of the addictive technologies into food and really studying about what would sell their food, sell their brands. And they're called, like MSG would be the most famous excitotoxin. And that really has a damaging impact on a lot of our cells in the nervous system and in the brain. So that when we say, okay, no refined foods whatsoever, no fast foods, nothing with any hint of excitotoxins in the system, there's a kind of a need for that. If we've been running ourselves on caffeine or on fast food, then these stimulants to the immune system are not there. And oftentimes, instead of you can feel very stagnated, or paradoxically, you can feel very agitated and the nervous system's wired. And that's just before you step over, oftentimes, into a very deep calm. And, Pro and I are involved in meditative practice, and every 10-day meditation we do, it feels, you start to ease into it. It feels very peaceful sensation on the body. I experienced something very similar day 2 or 3 of the detox, where you just feel a lot calmer. Life comes at you and you're less reactive. And I think it has to do by all of the stimulants, consciously and unconsciously, that are in our diet.
Right. Yeah. And I
so was they cross over?
I absolutely crossed over.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, maybe I was thinking a little bit was no coffee, but
How many coffees do you drink a day usually?
Well, I'd like to say 1, but I have to say 3 to 4.
Yeah, it creeps up.
Yeah, at work there's a pot of coffee, and I just keep topping it off. Some days not at all, and other days I wouldn't even know how much coffee I've had. So that, and I also felt, and I feel empowered now because I'm bringing lunch to work. And
that's a great feeling.
It's unbelievable. There's no more, it's lunchtime, I'm hungry. Well, what am I going to get? And I don't want anything. I haven't wanted anything that's out there for a long time. I don't want the turkey sandwich. I don't want this. I don't want the soup because it's, I've had they laugh at me at work because I criticize. Every time I get a lunch, I come down with a complaint. And it's just, you everywhere you work, you have the same restaurants to go to, and you get tired of the food. And you're just eating it because you're hungry. So it's really nice to say, I'm hungry, and I open the bag, and there's the beautiful mixed green salad with the nice cut-up tomatoes that I cut because you said get involved with the food. And I was like, it looks so good. So it's that's really been great.
And did it feel like you were treating yourself, so you weren't coming out of deprivation? You're actually coming out feeling you were nourishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, especially in the first week, because if you're not doing that, it's a crash and burn.
Right.
Yeah.
So
more time involved, prepping, buying.
Yeah.
But the payback was there.
Right. Yeah. And I like that part actually. I love, especially going to the supermarket and knowing what I wanted. Instead of a little of this, a little of that. What's for dinner? What's the whole. There's the whole randomness of it has been gone. So it's been great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So any special favorites that come out of this? You broadened the amount of vegetables that you would normally use and tried some new stuff from the book. Cook any seaweed?
I did. That's what I use. I used to, years ago, started macrobiotic cooking and faded away from it. And so we haven't had the seaweed, and I used kombu with my soup, and I have, is it arame? I have that, but I haven't gotten to cooking it yet because I've been so busy with the recipes and whatnot. I haven't, I haven't been able to do it. So I'm excited about, you know, going forward with all of that.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Excellent.
a lot more energy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, much better. And much, I'm not, I don't feel angry. My family says I'm angry a lot, and I'm not feeling angry at all.
That's interesting.
It's huge, actually.
It's very interesting.
It's huge. I'm getting a little more patient.
Yeah.
So.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. It's your liver, you know, getting into that free and easy space.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, you know, just to recap, last week we covered the whole idea in traditional Chinese medicine. The liver's involved with irritability, frustration, anger. If, you know, on an energetic level, emotionally, the flow of energy through the liver can create these emotional states. And that when we take time not having any, you know, heavy oils or fats or meats or stimulants, then the liver can work more easily and less congested and create more of a peaceful, free and easy flow. So peaceful, more energy.
Yeah.
Great.
All good.
Yeah. Amazing what foods do. The idea of what it creates for us.
1 week.
Huh?
Yeah, it's amazing. It is. It's amazing. 1 week.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
It's great.
Yeah, you know, as a herbalist too, when I look at, you know, all of people think, oh, there's a mystical leaf here and a mystical leaf there, and it really helps you, and you drink it, and you're okay. Just an extension of foods.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that, you know, if you got cold from eating leafy greens all the time and salads, and you have a root vegetable dish with all of the concentration into the roots and the starch of the root that needs to support growth, you know, of that plant. If you have that root, it's a very different feeling than if you have greens. I mean, you must have felt it, I imagine, this week. You have too many salads, you get a little cold, you have root vegetable dish, you feel very different. These are energetics of the food that we'll go into in a little bit and balance up.
Yeah.
Great work, profound stuff, really.
Yeah.
Well done. Follow that one.
Hey, Tom.
Top that, Tom.
Good evening.
How was your week?
Just 2 tough acts to follow. Well, actually,
you had a horrible week.
What's that?
You had a horrible week.
It's fine. Actually, let me start with something that's not me. You know, we have a daughter, Jessie, who's 13, and Catherine and I did this together. She's not here tonight, but one of the, I think, cool things was that, you know, in both doing it, you know, Jessie kind of jumped on the bandwagon for a few days, and even though she didn't completely, you know, do the whole thing, you know, I think there's to me, there's a real benefit there of having her think that way and actually, you know, getting off as much Coke and fast food, you know, just even to get that mindset. It was kind of cool to see her, you know, voluntarily kind of interested and, you know, poking her nose in there. So I think that, you know, that's the kind of thing that maybe when she's older or something, she'll think back, and it's a good pattern to get into.
Well,
That's
I
right.
think, you know, I think especially with teenagers, but with kids in general, you know, maybe with all kids, is I think that they're not so much listening to what's coming out, you know, out of our mouths is our actions. You know, I think it's about patterning, and to see your parents go through something like this, you know, is a shift in perspective, consciously and unconsciously. And I think that that's part of the patterning, and then the curiosity, you know.
But there's also a big difference now. Once you've had this experience and you say to your kids, I really want you to eat this broccoli, there's a whole different understanding of why you want them to eat the broccoli than there was like a week ago even. You know, you're not just saying it because you think you're supposed to and your kid's supposed to eat broccoli. It's because you really know how great this broccoli is.
Experientially.
And then they see how excited you are about it, and then they might get just as excited about it.
You know,
but you know the benefit is there.
I have a friend who's a cardiologist, and he told me once he was at this conference, and he's very involved in nutrition for heart health. And he was at this conference of cardiologists, and they asked how many people here tell their patients to eat healthy and change their lifestyle to help heal their heart. 80% of the hands went up in the room. And then he says, well, how many people actually do follow what you tell them to do? and just a couple of hands went up, maybe 5%. And then he said, well, of the people who the 5% who put their hands up, how many of you eat the way you tell your patients to eat? And nearly all of them did. And the rest that were telling it weren't following it. So because they were convicted, because they were convicted and eating naturally and eating that way themselves, when they told their patients were much more likely to change their lifestyle to try to eat that way, rather than somebody just believes it philosophically, is eating McDonald's on the side and tells his patient to change his lifestyle, you know. So the idea is the same with our kids too. They see you looking after your health, and they are automatically heading in that direction.
Yeah. And I will say, I think it was just last night or the night before, you know, come to think of it, you know, that Jessie, you know, I was making one of the salads and I had some left over. And so she made, you know, like spaghetti, but she used which I haven't been eating this week because I've been sticking to the diet. But
you really caught yourself.
I covered myself there.
It was pretty quick there, Tom.
I was on the money there. But she made like pasta with whole wheat pasta we had around, and then she used the spaghetti sauce, and then she had the salad, which she never has.
And
then we had dinner together. Which was a
dinner together.
We had dinner together, which is you know.
And she wasn't handcuffed to the chair.
No, without the TV.
Right.
So it was
no
really,
TV.
It was very nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Anyway,
see, little baby steps.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, I hadn't done an all vegetable and fruit cleansing before, which was kind of new, and I also I had been drinking coffee coming up to this, which I try not to do, but I did, and so I get massive headaches when I come off it, and so I had the black tea and green tea along with this diet, and I didn't really have any headaches, which was really good.
Yeah.
I guess some of the things I noticed were that I had funny, you know, weird cycles of being tired when I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
Like a couple times, like right when I got up in the morning, like, you know, I'd feel normal, and then like I'd be up for an hour, and I wanted to go. I just wanted to sleep for like 3 hours. It was the weirdest feeling in it that I would, you know, wake back up. It was very strange.
Yeah.
And then
I think we said it sometimes goes like that.
Yeah, it was.
I think there's a number of factors on that one. You know, I think that the first factor is that most of us are carrying sleep debt. And we're able not to come face to face with that, because when we start to feel a little bit tired, we grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we try, you know, excitotoxins, you know, in the food. Right. So the idea is that we've learned, okay, we'll grab something sweet, we'll, you know, have a cookie as a way of kind of shunting that feeling out of the way. So I do think as part of this cleanse process, this 2 weeks, part of this 2 weeks really is catching up with ourselves, you know, and renewing ourselves. So if you can get to bed a little bit earlier, it goes a long way to...
So did you let yourself have the little naps? And
as much as I could. I really tried to carve out time and just kind of go with it as much as I could. It was a little irritating. It was a couple times it was like actually brought up a little anxiety, because it felt like because I'm very busy and a lot is coming at me right now, and so it felt like, you know, I couldn't cope or something. It just, you know, there was a little bit of up and down there.
And then a little bit of insulin. You know, the insulin's unstable. It's, you know, you're used to eating a lot of carbohydrates. You know, the insulin's used to shoving out, and then it's not there. And you go through the first couple of days, and your body's saying, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And then it starts to get a bit more even. It's not so much, you know, shunting out.
Did it smooth out?
Actually, to tell you the truth, I think, like, I was just thinking about that. Today's really the first day that I think that, you know, you talked about breaking through, and I really felt like up until about today, I was still kind of in funny things were happening every day. Like I'd be standing there and I'd feel like, whoa, like the ground just moved.
It did.
A couple times, you know, because some wave of something was going through my body, and so... Just different things. So today's felt a little normal.
Luckily, phase 2 is just around the corner.
We actually, you know, we don't want people to get afraid, but, you know, we often say, oh, after the 3rd or 4th day, you really feel. But for some people, it does take about 5 or 6 or 7 days. And if you just can hang in there, then, you know, maybe on the 8th or 9th day, you'll really kind of feel that kind of breakthrough thing. But everybody's different.
You know, also the idea of the pancreas having to shunt out the insulin, you know, it's like throwing petrol on a fire. You know, if you have sweets and you say, whoa, and it pumps out insulin, and then pulls back rapidly. It's kind of going up and down, and there's no stabilizing going on at all. So if we're controlling that with very powerful refined sugars, then we're going to get even more of a swing. And then as we stop that, then we start to stabilize out, start to come much more on an even keel. Because these are very powerful stimulants. I mean, refined sugars, if we're getting, you know, a big chocolate bar or cookie or cake or whatever we're taking on board, or, you know, some people put a lot of sugar in their coffee. You know, there's like 2 or 3, 4 cups a day. You know, there's a lot of sugar going in.
So anyway, I will pass the baton. But
pass it back to Amy.
Good job,
There you go.
Tom.
So how'd it go, Amy?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did. Well, my first day was the most interesting because I felt wonderful. I felt like I was high on
The
something.
first day.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't, and it was really, really interesting. I was very, very energetic, very talkative, but the honeymoon didn't last long.
How was that? How was that, Steph? Were you glad the first day was over?
Yeah, I kind of started going down from there. It's
You
like,
did, yeah.
Yeah, I experienced a lot of. I got in touch with my feelings, like anger. You know, I got really pissed off at things, and and I don't know about, nobody mentioned, but I was hungry.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was eating and eating and eating and eating, and I'm just sick of seeing another, you know, like parsnip or like
Right.
anything like that. And I just really wanted some pizza, you know, something, something kind of that makes your eye roll back, you know, because I miss that feeling, and I guess I'm very attached to that. But I slept better a little bit, and I have snoring problem, and it went away.
Wow.
So that was kind of interesting. I didn't even think about it, but it did go away kind of for now. And
was there less phlegm in general?
oxygen
Oftentimes,
getting in.
more
It just went
oxygen to
away.
the cells,
I don't
less
know.
inflammation. The
I
idea of
wasn't
flooding.
snoring.
Were you doing the green drink as well?
No.
No. So it was just fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
When you're cranking the fruits and vegetables up to like 12, 15 portions a day, which is probably where you were, you know, in comparison with maybe 2 or 3 a day, which where you might have been. That's a lot of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds in a broad range that you're flooding your body with very suddenly. So, you know, any inflammation around the adenoids or anything in the throat has a chance of really going down. Less phlegm, less phlegmatic, more oxygenation.
Yeah.
That's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, and the hunger issue. We actually usually say to people, you know, watch the hunger thing, because often in our culture, we don't let ourselves get hungry one bit. You know, we are a culture of snackers. As soon as a tiny little, you know, inkling of hunger comes along, we stuff it. You know.
People are scared of it. Oh, I can't feel hungry.
Making friends with hunger and just letting yourself get hungry once in a while is interesting to go through. Because oftentimes you let yourself get hungry, you don't satisfy the hunger, it goes away. And then you get hungry. And then I know on the detox, there are days where you get really hungry. And then, you know, you're looking for something. But, you know, I'm sorry that we didn't say it ahead of time, but you did go through it.
You might have run out of here if you said it.
I start to understand why like a horse eats for 12 hours a day and a cat eats once every 3 days. And, you know.
You know, the interesting thing, too, about emotions coming forward, you know, I think that, you know, comfort foods are, you know, it sounds like, it's just a diet. Come on, you know, what's up with you? It's a powerful deal, isn't it? When you've experienced it. When you can't get to your routines or your comfort foods or your reactive behavior patterns that settle us down around certain agitations, you know, food does kind of make us a bit heavier. It does blot out some of those sensations, emotions, and suddenly that's not there, you know. And then you're working with deprivations. God, I want that pizza. You know? And you're coming from deprivation, you know. Then you're denying. Then when you're coming from deprivation, you're working with everything that you've denied yourself. You know, when you're coming from that space, and that's a very irritable space. So, when I do think that this is an opportunity to clear out on an emotional level, and to separate out the power of comfort foods, where you might feel an emotion and suddenly you've got pizza in your mouth. You know, to avoid feeling, stuff that sensation down in us. You know, so this connection between foods and comfort foods is a very powerful I mean, we've been putting food in our mouth 3 times a day our entire lives. You know, so that these connections with emotional patterns, with reactivity, are so established that to take 2 weeks out of our, I'm really well done, guys, to take 2 weeks out of your life and try this roller coaster adventure, you know, it's what comes up, and where's the pizza, and damn, I'm angry, you know. It's not always the other way around where you think, well, I feel much more patient, you know. You know, there are a number of things that can come forward. That's why, you know, the detoxification isn't just about physiological toxins. You know, when we're no longer keeping down these emotions by overeating, or eating too much is a very common way just to zone out and not feel, I'm pissed off, I'm going to eat. You know, those connections are not there. Damn, I can't eat them. You've got to feel your sensations and learn how to negotiate them and handle them and work them through. You know, rather than leave them all bubbling under like can happen. I had a couple of, as Poe can attest, I've had a few irritable days myself. Poe hasn't, no.
Yes, he has. And just to tack on to that, it's really, all this is about becoming conscious, so that, you know, the whole macrobiotic theory of eating is really to eat appropriate to what your activity is going to be and what your day is going to be, what the weather's like. So there may be a time where you're going through something where choosing a comfort food is a really good idea. You know that you're under some situation where taking that food in is really going to help you. But it's about being conscious about it, like doing it, like Geoff said, not blindly and with blind reactivity. It's really about doing it with awareness and knowing that that's why you're doing it. You know, and that's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It's just what the energetic is, and this is how you're using it.
Now, next week we'll present a bit of information on genetic connections, cultural connections. You know, comfort foods, you know, is really hardwired into us energetically too. You know, that we will react to some foods and not to others. That that different ethnic populations react very dangerously to certain drugs. You know, we all have a different makeup, and I don't think there's one diet fits all at all. So what we're saying in this 2 weeks is just to find out what you react to, what is your comfort food, how you can modify behaviors, to learn about this on an experiential level. I mean, you're experiencing it. It's not some intellectual book that we're reading or something. We're actually experiencing this. And we can get to a point where, you know, we had a lady on one of our groups who was from the Caribbean. And there was a whole range of fruits that she rediscovered and different recipes she rediscovered. And it really lit her up. You could tell that, you know, that was, you know, from generation after generation handed down to her. So there is a lot about how food interacts with our genes very differently. You know, for instance, the American Indians are lactose intolerant, and Northern European herding nations are lactose tolerant. So that we, from Northern Europe, were able over 15 generations to modify a certain enzyme in order to break down cow's milk and dairy products, whereas they never had. So when they eat milk, they have terrible diarrhea, the worst bloating imaginable, terrible gas. There's a great story, if I told it last week and I'll tell it again anyway, is of this guy was sent to deliver to Navajo Indians government-assisted food, and the food was powdered milk. So he went to the place on the reservation. He said, "Where should I deliver this?" They said, "Oh, take it down to the baseball field." I said, "The baseball field?" So he drives this delivery of powdered milk from the U.S. government down to the Navajo baseball field, and he pulls up and he says, "I've got this powdered milk. What's? Oh, great! The powdered milk's here, guys." He said, "Oh, good." And they all got the milk, and they started, and they used to pour it on the lines to mark the lines. And he said, "We've got so much of this at home, and not one of us can eat it because it causes terrible diarrhea, the worst gas, and the worst bloating."
Yeah.
So there's different genetic makeups also with our food that we have to take into account. There's not one size fits all. There's a certain parameters that I think that the studies are really suggesting, and we'll cover the Okinawan study, we'll cover the China study, we'll cover some of the studies out of Crete, that all point to fruits and vegetables. I mean, you can't go wrong, you know. And then what we tack on, what grains we tack on, if we tack on meats, if we tack on beans and grains, and how we cook them, what recipes we have. Not everybody can have chili peppers, other people can't live without chili peppers. You know, there's different cultural takes that build on top of that. But what we want to try to do in this 2-week program, and I'm glad Mary Ellis said it tonight, you want to eat like this forever. That was a classic, because everybody thinks that, but really this is just a diet for detoxification, to experience some of these truths, profound truths around food. Well done.
Good job, Amy.
Let's see. I had a pretty good week. I got to say, it wasn't a bed of roses. The first day I was, really exhausted and kind of cold. And I think probably the day before yesterday was the first day where I really felt, no, actually just yesterday I felt good. I felt, clear and smooth, and I had great energy, but up until then there was a lot of jags where I just, same thing on me, but of course at different times, which was good because, we'd kill each other. But, just extremely angry.
Over the pizza.
And it was like, there was like this whole kind of emotional maturity thing. I felt like I was a little kid being asked to wait. And just like I thought a lot about how children must feel when we're expecting them to be mature and not act out and not have a meltdown just because they're a little bit hungry or a little bit tired, and because I felt like I was going to have meltdowns, and I want it now,
and Amy sends you the timeout. Go to your room right now, Stephen.
Actually, I gave myself times out. I just it was the day before yesterday. I came home and I was so anxious and so irritated and angry, and I knew if I engaged in any kind of conversation, telephone, email, or person to person, I was gonna, it wasn't gonna be pretty. So I sent myself to bed until dinner, and then I just chewed a lot of vegetables for dinner. I wasn't happy that day.
It wasn't one of those meals you want to remember.
Oh, my face, I'm sure at dinner was like, like a very unhappy horse, chewing.
Well, to take that idea of, I think that the idea of being frozen around certain experiences as a child, and how we can come from that reactive place of a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, and try to, the objective for me is to try to drag ourselves screaming and kicking into the present with the maturity and wisdom we have now, because it is so easy to come from a shut-off place of childhood reaction. Who knows, may have been in our history. I want it and I want it right now. I'm hungry, and that meltdown that can happen. I have it. I'm sure my mother put up with a few meltdowns from me, and so's Poe. But the idea is, what can we do about that? How to try to soften around that? That's why the relaxation. 20 minutes of relaxation, sweeping the mind through the body. Getting the exercise, as well as all the dietary constructs are there.
Well, I think it really helps in a sense. It is a, I can understand why it's a universal religious practice, because it does help with faith and just spirituality and understanding that it is all going to be okay. You know what I mean? I'm hungry, but I'm going to be okay. Right. Where am I right now? Right now,
it's got to be the most basic human angst of not knowing if you're going to be fed.
Fed, right.
And when you think of the Chinese say that issues of security are really tied to the stomach and spleen, and when you think of a baby being breastfed, and then crying to be breastfed, and then not knowing if it's going to be fed ever again, and then crying again to get food. So this connection between security and food and nourishment is a very basic human need, you know, and it, so I think that it's so easy, literally, it's going to be okay, you know.
Right.
You will get to your pizza just 2 weeks down the line or whatever, you know. Like you can talk yourself into it.
Well, you know, the nice thing was, like in the morning, I did the liver flush, and then I'd get that kind of hungry, acidy feeling, and then I would go for a run, and it felt great, you know, because I felt lighter anyways, because I shed a few pounds, and then to run on a, you know, kind of that, I don't know, acidy kind of stomach, empty.
That fuel,
and it really, it felt good.
It's the fat oil fuel.
And so that, and the other thing is my hands always hurt, you know, and I always thought it was just because I use them, you know, in my job all the time. And my hands feel great. They feel stronger than they have in a long time.
Interesting.
That's
and
good.
My knees feel good, and they always ache a little bit. And the other interesting thing is that my memory has sharpened a little bit. You know, I can recall things like, what was on that list? Oh yeah, boom, boom, boom. You know, and
the greater clarity.
Yeah. And and there was one more interesting thing. I had a couple smell sensitivities. Like all of a sudden, parsnips are just horrid. I cannot handle
enough of those.
They're just terrible, you know. So, you know, it's just interesting what kicks up.
I think that could be, you know, sometimes too. I think that could be, you know, might be milk for you, or you know, a food that really is disagreeable. You know, might be involved with, especially because of the clarity involved. It might be just like, well, that's it. That's not a good vegetable for you for whatever reason.
For whatever reason,
Don't even bother delving into it. Just you know, plenty of other ones.
Off the list. So.
Well done. We want to try to get to some slides in a few more.
Hanging in there during the tough times.
So JP, your fourth year?
Outside of the first day when everything just kind of went through me, it really hasn't been difficult. I mean, being prepared because I've done it before, knowing what I'm in for, and knowing the things I like. You know, it's not really, you know, you go in and you know what you want, and you chop and make it up and eat it, and it's a mindset, you know.
It is a mindset.
It really is, and knowing full well that it's good, and wanting it to be good, you know, knowing what it's doing for the body, it just hasn't been difficult.
Excellent.
Good job. Anything new this time?
Well, I can't. It's just been so normal. I mean, really, it's weird. I mean, you know, even, you know, wanting in your mind to say, well, geez, I would like a steak or a cheeseburger down at C&L. There's no desire, really, you know?
It's interesting, the whole desire evaporating thing. It's very interesting.
And I love vegetables, I love salads, I love zucchini and stir fry and all that stuff, you know. You can make things what you want it to be. You don't need, you know, the other stuff.
We were talking earlier about keeping the ritual too. You know, like, so the idea of having a soup and then having a couple of courses and eating together, you know, that's a very important, you know, I was, you know, saying we had guests over one time, we were on the detox, and you know, they couldn't change it, we couldn't change it, they weren't on it, we were, and we served the soup as first course, we served the salad, the second course, and then we brought out the Canton seaweed dessert, and of course, needless to say, they probably never come back again.
They stopped for dinner on the way home.
But the ritual goes a long way. You know, the ritual really goes a long way of keeping those rituals in of how we eat. Well done.
Good job.
Thank you. Excellent job.
Well, fourth year. It's good. It's good, and really, it's kind of ditto with JP. The thing I like is all the colors. Like he made a huge fruit salad, and you look at all the colors and you say, why don't we do this normally? We know we don't do it enough. But you do make the time, because it's a big thing. People say, well, I don't have time. Well, you actually do have time to prepare. And the crock pot for me is always good when you come home. And I hadn't done the collards greens really since the last detox, and I said, well, you know, I'm going to do that and throw in the potatoes and the carrots and a whole bunch of other onions and things like that, and it tasted really, really good. And it smells good, so your smells, the colors, the smells, everything that you should experience is heightened.
And you know, those colors are antioxidants. The antioxidants in nature are concentrated in the colors, and there are different spins on them, and they mix together synergistically very differently. You know, you would have, broccoli would have sulforaphane, you have lycopene in tomatoes, you know. These are very powerful antioxidants, anti-inflammatories that are not found in meat. Just a few residues left over from whatever that chicken was eating. And chances are these days it certainly wasn't anything good with antioxidants in it. You know, that we don't generate that. Only plants generate that as part of photosynthesis of that process. Plants only generate that. We just use it up, and our source of that is from plants. So if we're not eating a large amount of plants, we're not getting all of the protection, all of the anti-inflammatories we should.
Right. I like the green tea better this time with the ginger. JP had picked up some. I said, oh, I don't like the green tea with the ginger. And then I went and had one because we didn't have any other green tea. And I actually enjoyed it. So it just goes to prove
it's good to branch out new flavors. Change. Green tea goji berry. There's green tea everything these days. Well done.
Well, excellent job.
Good. So we're going to try to whip through some slides quickly.
I think. Oh yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
So we're going 6:30 to 8. I think.
We've got 15 minutes.
Should we go over phase 2 because that's what's coming up specifically, and then.
Okay.
Yeah. So everyone is done with phase 1. Has anyone started phase 2 yet?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So just want to go over that. So again, phase 2 is also bringing in some really great food. Grains are good. I know that a lot of times carbohydrates out there get a really bad rap, but we're talking about refined carbohydrates as being the problematic ones. So the whole grains really give us a wealth of nutrients. A lot of protein in some of these grains, so even though you think you're not taking in protein, you actually will be. And I definitely recommend varying the grains. So brown rice, barley, rye, buckwheat, they all have sort of different qualities, just like the fruits and vegetables. So integrate those in different ways. Oats for breakfast. And again, if you're finding that you were feeling so good on phase 1 that you don't necessarily want to go to phase 2, you can go back and forth between phase 1 and phase 2. But while you're in phase 2, take full advantage of it. And we showed the rice cakes last time. These are some things that we found. I find these now at, I think it's Shaw's.
Yes, they are.
And Whole Foods now. These are corn thins and they're organic, so that's an alternative to the rice cake. Those are really nice. And I showed you the miso, and you can also, if you're craving pasta, you can get rice-based pasta. So it's actually legal. And then there's also soybean pasta. You can get black soybean pasta. Definitely follow the directions. They tend to cook a little differently than regular pasta, but if you're really craving something like pasta with tomato sauce, that's completely legal in phase 2. And before we meet next time, phase 3, many of you will be moving into phase 3. So phase 3 incorporates phase 1, phase 2, and you're bringing in plant-based protein. So that could look like soy products, which would be tofu, or tempeh. If you've never tried tempeh, it's over usually by the tofu section. It sometimes comes in little burgers, sometimes comes in squares, and you can chop it up and roast it and stir fry it, and it has a very it's fermented soy, so it's actually a little better for you than tofu. Tofu I recommend, but just like any soy product, in moderation. We'll talk about this next week about soy, but Some people have sensitivities to it.
It's also good when you introduce something new back in after a week of fruits and vegetables, you can tell if there's going to be any allergic reaction. So you might notice, if you do notice some bloating around soy, then you might be some aggravation. You don't want to have too much of it.
Right.
You know, so, or it might be nothing. So as you bring these foods back in this coming week, but also, you know, the week after the program ends, you might notice some food sensitivity or food allergies as you start to bring them in. So just be observant when you bring something in like soy.
To check in on that. Corn too. And if you want to have fish or any kind of animal protein, like if you're really, really craving it, that's okay in phase 3. Just really try to get the best quality that you can find, organic, hopefully. And then the phase 3 diet is really the diet that hopefully you will feel absolutely have enough energy, enough mental energy, physical energy that you would kind of move that into your regular life with a little bit of ease. So we'll get to that next time, because going back to normal eating is always a challenge. But right now we're still on the program, so we're going phase 2, phase 3. The other thing about grains is to get the full nutritional benefit from grains is chewing. So you really, really want to chew your grains. And the saliva in your mouth is alkaline, and it will break it down, and that way your body will absorb. A lot of people, if they get bloating or discomfort from grains, it's often because they didn't chew it enough. So really just be conscious of your chewing. So I think that's it for the phases.
Good. So to kind of refocus why we're doing this, I'm going to just go through some of these slides quickly that present some information from a couple of different sources. But before we do that, the main reason that we were focusing on last week around the liver is that because the liver is the filter, and it filters 1 quart a minute of blood.
A minute.
There's 1 quart in this oat beverage here. So 1 minute the liver is filtering, and then after it's 1 day it will produce 1 quart of bile. It shunts these toxins out. And remember, what the liver is filtering is internal waste, bacteria, viruses. It's also filtering out external pesticides, herbicides, lead maybe, and the enzymes break that down and put it into the bile, and then 1 quart of bile is pushed out into the intestines. It meets enzymes from the pancreas, and that creates a good pH. And this pH is really essential for good digestion. So this acid-alkaline balance is really very good, and then it moves on out to be excreted in the intestines. So that's how we get rid of a lot of the metabolic wastes, but also how we get rid of the external toxins, internal and external. And what we've done for the last week by not eating a lot of fatty foods, a lot of processed foods, refined foods, sugars, fats, we've given the liver a break to raise up its game, to make it more effective to process out these metabolic wastes. So if we could just go to a couple of our slides, Brian, that would be great. So we're going to whip through these quite quickly. So we're on the detox program. And we'll go to the next one. So the amazing liver, we just kind of covered that one. And this next one is on the 25 most important foods to purchase organically. And some of these foods, really the idea of strawberries being probably the number 1 list of fruits, because these are hit very hard, not necessarily in the US, but in countries like Chile and around the world with very severe pesticides and herbicides. And we can't read that very well, I'm sorry.
Just as an example for strawberries, it's the most heavily contaminated item in the U.S. Often 300 to 500 pounds of pesticides per acre are used on strawberries.
Yikes.
Strawberries were found to have the highest level of hormone-affecting pesticides, including, and the list goes on and on. I mean, it's like a paragraph worth of chemicals. And it's often, these are the fruits that we like to give our kids, little strawberries, grapes, and these are the most heavily contaminated crops. So that's why they're on the list of the 25 most important things to buy organically.
Yes, you just do milk and butter.
Milk and butter. Dairy products tend to retain higher levels of residues. Well, anything that's higher on the food chain. So not only are you getting perhaps the chemicals on the grass that the cow ate, but you're also getting what was injected into the cow, hormones, antibiotics, and then that's going, that's more and more concentrated into the dairy and into the cheese or the butter, ultimately from the dairy. Not to mention bovine growth hormone, and the verdict's still not out on that. So, I wouldn't take the chance.
So the idea of, eating organically is not overburdening the detoxification processes of the body with extra things that we don't need. Because if it can't handle it, it will tuck it into fat cells. It won't go out through the bile and through the intestines. It will be left in limbo in the body. And these residues over decades build up in us. So the next slide is food for energy. We wanted to just show a Kirlian photograph of a leaf, and we'll be able to see that the top of that leaf is cut off, and there's still the electron streams given off by the by any living thing. So if that leaf were canned, there would be no energy to it whatsoever. You can see that dark bit is where the leaf has been cut off, but there's still that phantom limb projecting out. Now, if we eat that leaf, we get the biochemical value of that leaf, but we also get the energetic value. So fresh is a big deal. If it's not fresh, it won't have that life force, it won't have that energetic capability. And on to the next one, we had been talking about the Okinawan guideline. So the Okinawans basically is a 30-year Harvard-based study on an island of Okinawa, and they find that they have 80% less estrogen-receptive cancers, 80% less heart disease. They have the highest levels of antioxidants in the world. They have the highest number of centenarians in the world. And basically, what are they doing? So they're eating foods mainly from plant sources, 9 to 12 portions a day. What we say is the minimum should be 5 a day. The Okinawans are getting 9 to 12. So we have to be around 9 to 12 to try to get their longevity and their good health. But the minimum is going to be around 5 a day. So there's just some information on the Okinawan study that shows that the Okinawans are the healthiest, and then number 18 is the US. And not good, with the highest rate of heart disease and so on and so forth. So if we could go to the next one. So it just covers this idea of 80% less heart disease, 12 portions of fruits and vegetables, the highest amount of antioxidants. And they're eating seaweeds, they're eating major amounts of plant-based foods. They do eat a little meat, they eat pork, but they cook it so there's no fat left for a long time, and they eat major amounts of fish. So we go on to the next slide regarding the China study. So again, this study encompasses 860 million people over many, many years. And there's just a phenomenal database that was collected, and the Oxford University and Cornell University really parsed through all of that information. And one of the authors in this study produced the book, The China Study, that basically, in a sentence, plants good, meat bad.
Well, animal protein, all of the negative results of eating animal-based protein, they've shown if you don't eat fruits and vegetables, will accumulate in the body and create the degenerative diseases and the atherosclerosis. But you can counteract the negative effects of animal protein by eating fruits and vegetables. So fruits and vegetables really is the message.
Yeah, the correlation was in counties that had never eaten, never able to afford animal protein or dairy products, when they were able to start to afford it, had major amounts of heart disease, major amounts of cancer. And the study that just haunts me really was one that they did on animals where they seeded them, they exposed them to carcinogens in the environment, and they concentrated them, gave it to them. So they seeded cancers within them. They had another group where they were able to grow from the seeded cancers tumors, and then they fed them 5% animal protein, casein from milk, and they fed them 10% and 20%. Now the 5% animal protein, there was no progression of the seeded cancers. There was no progression of the tumors. At 10%, there was major progression in the seeded cancers, heading towards tumors, and there was major tumor growth. At 20%, it almost doubled the amount of cancers that it was able to produce. So there, you know, study after study that this guy highlights in the China study shows that the correlation between progression of any cancers that are seeded are huge, past 5% of animal protein. Now, he really targets animal protein. You know, my feeling is that what keeps a lot of this in check, like what keeps what we found in just 1 week, we've had 3 reports of inflammatory responses in the joints clearing up, getting better, just from the amounts of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds in the amounts of plant-based foods that we eat. So I think what keeps a lot of this cancer in check and gives a lot of the health benefits over time is increasing the amount of plant food that we eat. Increasing the portions up to Okinawan land of 9 to 12 portions a day. You know, somehow we got to find a way to get there, whether it's a green drink, you know, whether it's a fruit juice, we've got to find a way to get up in there because that's where all the benefits are. And quickly on to the next slide, where he kind of brings down in the book, the China study, thank you, to the main things to really look after. So its nutrition represents the combined activities of countless food substances. Synergy, eat broadly, eat widely. Vitamin supplements are not a panacea for good health. Surprise, surprise, they help, but it's got to come from plant-based foods. There's virtually no nutrients in animal-based foods that are not better provided for by plants. So plants far outweigh on so many levels, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, nutritional value than meats. The genes do not determine the disease on their own. They must be activated or expressed, and that nutrition plays a critical role in determining which genes, good or bad, are expressed. In other words, we're not just waiting for our genes to pop up with breast cancer or lung cancer, or whatever may be in our history. We can keep them in check by the types of foods that we eat, or we can encourage them. We can encourage them to go off in that direction. We can lean into it, or we can block it. So his next, number 5 on his list is nutrition. And this comes from all of his, these are, you know, after the summary of all of the mortality studies out of China, these are his 8 conclusions. That nutrition can be substantially controlled the adverse effects of noxious chemicals. In other words, we can protect ourselves against external herbicides, pesticides, cleaning agents, all of the terrible things that we are inventing and putting into the air these days that are ending up on a cellular level that we can, Dr. Gertler presented last week, these compounds could be measured in the fat cell of babies. You know, so all of these things can be held in check by the kinds of foods that we eat. That the same nutrition that prevents disease in its early stages can also halt or reverse it in later stages. Heart disease is not a lifelong sentence. We now know from Dean Ornish's study that you know, low fat, increasing the amounts of plant-based foods, lowering the amount of animal foods and plant-based nutrients will reverse heart disease. And there are instances of also blocking tumor growth and reversing some cancers. So there is something we can do about it. That nutrition is beneficial for a particular chronic disease will support good health across the board. So, and then good nutrition creates health in all areas of our existence. So the last 2 are a bit lame, but a lot of what we're about this last week is about experiencing it, right? And then there's a lot of other scary slides we got in there, so if we can whip through them.
I like to think of it. Think of your body as a nutritional bank account, and you're just putting in deposit after deposit when you're eating these fruits and vegetables, and it's going to fortify you. It's going to help you withstand all of the external toxins, all of the other toxins that are out there, and it's really just makes good sense. You know?
So if we could go to the next one.
It's not hard to do.
And the next one. These are all the scary ones. Look how bad we score in the US. And look who's at the top of those nations. Anyway, the next one, this is the interesting one about inflammation. You know, inflammation leads to so many diseases. Cancer, heart disease. Look at all of these diseases that are all involved with, they think now it's NF-kappa B, which is a gene that if kept in control, doesn't lead to all of that list. And it ranges from Crohn's disease to Alzheimer's, to heart disease, to cancers, to a lot of, you know, cystic fibrosis. And these things happen chronically over decades. And what keeps these chronic inflammations in check in the body, you've guessed it, plant food. Just to really prolong the point and do it to death. And then our last slide is these poor guys. What are we doing to our kids?
Oh my gosh.
It's frightening. 1 in 3 Americans now are overweight. 1 in 6 are morbidly obese. 58 million obese Americans. 1 in 5 American children overweight. One thing I couldn't get was this great thing I found on the internet. Actually, was this, thank you, was this map. This is starting in '85 when they started to record obesity state by state and body mass index. And this graphic was fantastic. I couldn't capture it, unfortunately, but this is the first one of the graphic. This graphic changes like you wouldn't believe from 85 each year. 86, the states start to color in, different colors. As we become, the body mass index, obesity level goes up state by state. And by 2004, through the heartland, they've had to create whole new categories. In the last 25 years, we have exploded. There's no other way of putting it. In the history of mankind, there's been human beings have never put this much weight on in a short period of 20 years. And we are going to be reaping the terrible rewards of that, of obesity, creating diabetes, heart disease, and cancers. So what we've experienced, thanks very much for the slides, Brian, that was great. What we've experienced really for the last week of fruits and vegetables is how profound food is and how much of a change it can affect us, body, mind, and spirit. And what we're aiming to do is save ourselves all of those terrible statistics, ending up being one of those terrible statistics by changing, reprogramming our behavior patterns around food to save us and our families from the potential suffering. And it's not rocket science. You know, we've already experienced inflammation clearing up. It's really a very simple, very profound thing. And the Okinawan study, the China study, and we didn't even get to the Crete studies, but all based around eating wide ranges of plant-based food, adding in seaweed, adding in grains and beans, eating broadly and taking time for ourselves, a basic process of life, nourishment, nutrients, and they can prolong our life and make us have a greater clarity. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
So we're still in it. I mean, this is all great information to keep you motivated. And one more week. That's all it is. One more week. And
you could do it.
Like someone said, that they really realized that they were doing something really, really good for themselves. So if you can keep that thought, keep that remembrance, and enjoy, really enjoy this week.
And the roomy pod?
Yeah.
Great speech.
Oh yeah.
Yes. At your Diet Coke speech.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Next time we'll talk about we'll talk about the 4 things that really created that obesity epidemic, and stay tuned for next week. Let's take a look
soda's
at.
Off. What do you want to think about soda?
There's another great poem in here. It's on page 69. It's called Bread. A sheik and a disciple are walking quickly toward a town where it's known there is very little to eat. The disciple says nothing, but he is constantly afraid of going hungry. The sheik knows what the disciple thinks. How long will you be frightened of the future because you love food? You have closed the eye of self-denial and forgotten who provides. Don't worry. You'll have your walnuts and raisins and special desserts. Only the true favorites get hunger for their daily bread. You are not one of those. Whoever loves the belly is brought bowl after bowl from the kitchen. When such a person dies, bread itself comes to the funeral and makes a speech. Oh, corpse, you almost killed yourself with worrying about food. Now you're gone and food is still here, more than enough. Have some free bread. Bread is more in love with you than you with it. It sits and waits for days. It knows you have no will. If you could fast, bread would jump into your lap as lovers do with each other. Be full with trusting. not with these childish fears of famine.
Well, good. Well done, well done. And hopefully you'll join us next week to find out what happens to our band of brothers and sisters here and if they come back. So
we'll have a little celebration, yeah.
From Poe and Geoff and everybody here, we hope to see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.